Caught in the center of a big black void. I'm not scared, I'm only annoyed.
Let's get into just for a second for the songwriters. Do you have anything that you want to say about how you learned to write a song? Like, how did you learn song structure like that? Because that is either just a natural gift, which I think some people just have that,
Mm-hmm.
or a lot of people might have helped you along with that natural gift. I know you talked about that Bill Withers was a mentor of yours, and I'm sure you had many along the way, like we all have. Do you want to talk about that and if that affected
Sure.
your songwriting and how?
Yeah, I mean, early on, I remember in high school being very fascinated and involved in this literary writing class that I had, and there's a teacher that really pushed just writing like kind of a journal every day of like, and pushing the idea of poems and just different structure of, and we learned a lot about a lot of different literary writing, and I just got really into all of that, and then the thing that inspired me to get into songwriting, believe it or not, was this one summer where I got really into The Cure. I just got really into lyric writing and like the landscape you can paint and just the different emotions you can pull from using different imagery and stuff like that. And so I got really into the idea of writing lyrics. I didn't know how to put it all together quite yet. And then in high school bands, I was taking stabs at writing songs and I was pretty self-conscious about it, but I was still doing it. And it just, but then the person that really taught me a lot about songwriting was a guy named Tim Akers, who I was in a band with out of Florida State University. Went to college there for a couple years, and we formed this band called Soul Food. And it was like an acoustic Americana band before there was acoustic Americana as a genre, really. And I mean, it was around the time when like MTV Unplugged was starting to be relevant, and Dave Matthews was about to break, and so we were this acoustic band, and just we he Tim wrote these amazing songs that I had never really met somebody that wrote songs that well,
Right.
and the songs that he had just really kind of perked my interest. And then through working as a collaborator, I mean, we co-wrote all of our material, just mostly the two of us. We had another member, Jen Lowe, who was also involved in the songwriting as well. But Tim just taught me a lot about things to think about and just structure and just making the song, finding all the strength in the arrangements of the songs and where the lyrics, and the meaning behind the lyrics, just all the different things. And I always still think about a lot of those things that he taught me. And then I just took it and ran with it, really. And then I found music communities in Atlanta,
Mm-hmm.
where I was a part of the Atlanta singer-songwriter scene around like Eddie Zadek, and at the time there was a bar district called Buckhead that was pretty debaucherous, but it was where all the musicians could make a living because you could literally, they had to cover music, somebody playing covers and whatever every door, in this whole like 4 block area. It was like every restaurant and bar had solo musicians, and we all were just this community of musicians that would play these gigs, and then we'd hang out together and do nights together. And there was a lot of great songwriters in those communities, and I got exposed through that. And then I eventually got exposed to the neo soul community of Atlanta, briefly. And there was a venue in Midtown called the Yin Yang Cafe, and basically it was around when the neo soul thing was really like starting to brew and like become this thing, and a lot of Philadelphia bands and like the Roots and people like that were really like starting to get notoriety. And India.Arie was the sweetheart of the Yin Yang Cafe. She was like the artist that the whole place and the community there was getting behind. And I had never experienced the community like I witnessed at the Yin Yang Cafe, and I'd never heard anybody sing like India.Arie before, like somebody. And she, funny enough, I had a side project band for a little bit that some friends of mine had put together, and we had background singers for some shows, and our background singers were India Arie and this guy John Almett, and both of them could sing like the Stevie Wonder crazy licks and everything, and they were doing like background harmonies, doing these harmonized like
Whoa.
riffs and stuff, and it was pretty. I mean, and we just paled in comparison as lead singers, but it
That's
was kind of
great.
a funny thing. But because I was exposed to her, it opened my mind up to just like, wow, like this is incredible, and like really really discovering soul music at that time. And I was already like into Bill Withers music, but I didn't know how much I was into Bill Withers music. And then India actually kind of tapped me into a deeper level of his music because I had never heard the song Grandma's Hands until she did it. And when I heard that song, I was just like, whoa, like, okay. And so, like, fast forward to years later, I mean, so much of that experience, translated into how I modeled community and the vibe of music community when I took over Room 5, because Room 5 reminded me of the Yin Yang Cafe in some ways, and I created R&B soul nights at Room 5 that felt like those nights to me, and it was just super satisfying to do. And then years later, through mutual friends, I got to know Corey Withers, and we became great friends. And then I ended up starting to play music with her, became her music director, and it was on the tail end of that documentary Still Bill that came out about her
Mhm.
dad.
Yeah.
And she wanted to do some shows and put a band together, and she wanted me to be the music director. And so our first rehearsal was at Bill's house, and I'm just like, what? And at the time, like literally at that time, right, just because I was looking for I was in very much into like funk and soul music, and I
Right.
was a singer-songwriter, and I
Right.
was into this whole acoustic singer, and I'm trying to find like, the Reese's peanut butter cup mixture of like how to put all that together, because it's like I love writing songs and I love acoustic music, but I love the backbeat and the funk of soul and R&B, and like the vocals and all that stuff. And I was trying to find how do you put those together, and the
Right.
answer is Bill Withers. And so you go and listen to Bill Withers music, and that's exactly what that is. And so I just took a deep dive into Bill Withers, and at the same time, of course, I mean, I already was deep into it when I got to know Corey, and so it was just kind of this like kismet sort of thing that we even met. And then we go over to his house, and I meet him for the first time, and I'm the music director, and I'm like, how is this going to go? And luckily it went great, and we hit
Yeah.
it off right away. And I just had this magical experience, and I came home and walked in my apartment, and I had Bill Withers vinyl with this, there's a picture on the inside cover of one of his vinyl, and he has this big smiling face. And I remember walking in the door and seeing that, and it just kind of hit me, and I was like, wow, that just happened. Like, this is crazy. And then
Yeah.
it went on for like a couple years. We were working on Corey's stuff. And
Wow.
then one day I decided to ask Bill, because we were really getting tight, and I decided to ask him about an arrangement for a song that I was working on that was actually a cover song. And I remember I was fighting this arrangement, and I'm really wanted to do this song, and I remember thinking, what would Bill Withers do with this arrangement to make it work? And I decided, well, I'll just ask him. And so I decided to ask him, and then he invited me and my band at the time, which is Mark Corbin and Chris Lovejoy. Um, well, actually, it wasn't Chris Lovejoy; it was Tamir Barzilay, but by that time, and he invited us over to his house, and for 2 months we would go over to his house once a week. Maybe it might have even been a couple of times a week for here and there, but it was like about once a week for 2 months where we would go over there, and he ended up scrapping, like, we didn't even worry about that cover song, and he wanted to hear my music, and we got into all my music at the time and went through all of it, and he helped kind of tweak it, and
Yeah.
we learned so much. And I recently went back and found some old recordings I have of those rehearsals, and I didn't realize how much I have of him talking to us, which was just the coolest thing in the world, and
That's
and so
precious. That's
yeah,
precious to
I
have
mean, I couldn't have asked for a more perfect mentor and just experience
Yeah.
like that. And I mean, we became real close, and we had some great experiences together. I took him to the Fonda one night to see Alabama Shakes and Michael Kiwanuka, and it was just
Oh,
me
I
and
love
him.
him. Yeah.
We had a
Yes.
great experience,
Oh, you saw
and
Sonnet Baby sing with him too. She was singing. Sonnet Simmons was singing with Michael. Um,
was she?
yeah, for like she
Oh
did
wow.
the Hollywood Bowl too, and I think she was pregnant.
Oh wow.
She did.
But
Oh
yeah, I mean,
yeah, he's
that's
amazing.
cool.
Yeah,
I should talk to Sonnet about that. That's
yeah,
great.
for sure. She's
But
amazing
yeah, and
too.
Bill was a huge impact on
Yeah.
me, and I learned
Oh,
so
that's
much.
so
And
good.
I
And
mean, his music to me is just it's some of the best stuff
you
ever.
know what I
And
was thinking? I think like that all comes from you saying I don't know, and then learning, and then saying I don't know about this, and then oh you don't know, because I think that people like that. So like oh but you're capable and you're smart and here's this like, and I think that that's the smartest thing that people can do is to get mentors in this business, because people are very generous, very, and all you have to do is ask.
right,
It's
it's
shocking what
interesting.
happens.
I feel like I've often felt like, and I mean, I could be corrected on this, but to me, it seemed like in the transition from the old world of like, the 90s and analog and all
Yeah,
the before pre-internet and everything
yeah.
to now, I mean, or at least into the 2000s, I felt like there was like a gap of mentorship a bit
Mhm.
in music. And it seemed like the old guys were staying they're keeping to themselves, and then everybody new was sort of figuring it out based on the coattails or just the influences of all those but there wasn't like a passing down or a passing of the torch as much as what I feel like that's starting to happen now, because I think
Yeah.
now that everybody's dying off, it's like everybody's kind of going, oh
I
man, we
mean,
have, I mean, I hate to say it that way, but it's
I
like
mean,
it's
it's
true. Like these
true.
legends are going, and I
Moving
mean, I've been
on.
fortunate enough now to be around so many legends, and
Leonard Cohen, James Brown,
oh
Bill
yeah,
Withers. I mean, we still thank God. Like somebody that mentored me on the spot in an interview on a carpet was Judy Collins. She took 1 minute of her time and simply took my hand and congratulated me about something about the show, and I was like what's this now, because that's she has that heart, and so I and she even is part of some mentorship
oh cool,
program too for young artists, and I really feel like it's the key, and I know that you do too, and you love a we were talking about this off camera the other day about just building our community and just
hmm
building that idea, and we haven't really, I mean we have the recording academy that's lovely, and they're starting to do things where they're creating cohesiveness, but honestly it can be a competitive time,
right.
even just going into that building. So I mean I think that we need like you know we need to keep going
You need
and
to
keep talking
scrap the
about it.
competitiveness to a certain. I mean, healthy competition's good,
Yeah, yeah,
but the competitiveness of like people holding everything close to, it's.
yeah, yeah,
I think that needs to end, because
yeah.
I mean we're looking at now like who are the next legends,
That's right,
and
that's right.
there's
We
a big
don't have any.
question mark about
Yeah,
that. And
yeah.
so, as I'm on tour with Willie Nelson and Neil Young and, Bob Dylan and people like that all the time with Lukas, and we're learning so much from them, but we're realizing like these guys are only going to be around for a little while longer, and when they're gone, like who's taking their place? And one of the things I love about Lukas and Promise of the Real is these guys. I mean, Lukas, he's 15 years younger than me, and
Oh,
he's
wow.
got it all going on in so many different ways, and he takes it to heart,
Oh,
the position he's in of carrying the torch, and it's so special and cool, and you know he's a perfect person for that, and
yes.
that's the his work ethic. He really inspired me early on when we were having conversations about all this this kind of stuff, and he hit the nail on the head for me of like what it takes to be a musician at the level of a legend, and
Yeah.
really doing this thing is you have to treat it like you're an Olympic athlete.
That's right. That's what Judy
Yeah,
Collins said.
really.
Exactly. If you look at the tape, she said, I train like an Olympic athlete.
Yeah.
Well, they're all friends. This is why, because
Right. Yeah.
they are
Who,
all. This
who
is the
knows?
ones
Maybe
that are
Judy Collins told Lukas that once.
because I've been like, I must train because her whole family was athletes, and she said that's how she
Right.
trains. So
Yeah.
we
And I
all
mean,
have
it
that
makes so
little,
much sense when you think about it that way
yeah,
too,
yeah,
you know, and so, and then the reason why he's there, why that band is Neil Young's band, his touring band, you don't get that very easily. Like most people would never get that opportunity. And they got that opportunity because they pushed themselves and were because they pushed themselves, they were that good
yeah,
and they were not afraid to take that opportunity. And I mean they created that opportunity
yeah,
for themselves.
yeah.
And I mean it says so much about how great they are to have that. And so I think there needs to be more of that kind of ambition
Mm-hmm,
and then also just the passing down
mm-hmm.
of what these guys, I mean obviously they've had a lot that has been passed down to them from
Right,
Willie and
right,
that whole family and everybody that Lucas has grown up around, but
yeah,
not everybody gets that.
yeah,
So, he's special, but he uses it so well and it's inspiring. I think that more and more, and I'm seeing more and more of the mentorship thing
right.
happen now, but it's so important now. So any opportunity
So,
I ever get
yeah,
to take, an opportunity with somebody that can be a mentor of any level. I mean, I
yeah,
take it to heart because I
yeah.
know how valuable that is. And, you know, we're going to be on our own and they're all going to be gone and we're going to be the ones passing that stuff down. And
Well,
if we
yeah,
want legends for the future, we need to not hold everything so tight to ourselves and not share, because passing this stuff down is what's going to make people great, in the future. And so that's another reason why I'm so big on community, because you can be great inherently on your own and you could have your own thing going on that's really good. But I argue that pretty much every legend or every great artist somewhere along the way was influenced by a music scene and a community. And
oh yeah,
it's
definitely.
because you go out and you find people that are like-minded, you find inspiration, you find ideas and things that kind of, spark ideas that you might not have thought of on your own, or, a collaboration of band members, or even, a relationship, whatever. It could be anything. And community is so valuable for that. And I think it's very, 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 very important. And I mean,
Yeah.
I'm a
Well,
huge, huge advocate of all that. And now,
right.
living in Laurel Canyon,
I
it's
was
like,
just gonna say you're living in Laurel
yeah,
Canyon.
yeah,
That's perfect.
yeah,
Perfect
yeah.
segue. Yeah, tell us what creatively and energetically that experience is like for you. How has that changed your process? Because there is something very special, as we all know, that are living in Los Angeles and have spent any amount of time there. There's a special energy there. And
Yeah.
so what is your process now?
I mean, my process.
What's your process, man? Now, or how has that affected you at all in your art, in song,
Well, I mean, I'm
in
inspired. I'll
making it?
say that
Yeah.
for sure. The legacy of this neighborhood is everything that I've been about, really, I first found Laurel Canyon early when I moved to LA. Um my ex-wife got involved in a project where they were recording an album in Laurel Canyon, and I'd never been there, and we all went to this house and they had set it up as a studio, and there's all these different musicians, one of them being Dan Rothschild, who's a good friend of mine, whose father produced all the Doors records. And
That's right.
Dan's been living in Laurel Canyon for a long, long time. So, learning more and more about the history of that and really like putting two and two together of the fact that of all the things that happened here, and then what I've found just for myself with the music scenes in Atlanta and in, with Hotel Cafe and Room 5, and just how important all that. I mean, like that when I moved to LA, it was kind of like this is such a big city and everybody's out trying to do it, and and you realize that all these musicians are basically fighting to figure out the same things, but everybody's doing it on their own, and like everybody's promoting their shows, and they're like 5 shows in a night, and it's like promoting the hell out of one 45-minute set, and they push in the crowd and pull, and push in another crowd and all this stuff. And I got to the point where I was like, why are we all competing against each other? Why don't we do shows together? And I finally met all these great musicians, and I got into that idea early on before I really took on booking and sound and all that stuff. I got into promoting events because to me, it's like, if I have talented friends and collectively we can make a big party for everybody, and I could talk to the bookers about give us the whole night and we'll pack the room,
That's right.
then to me, it just makes for a better show for everybody. It makes for a memorable night that everybody has a great time. We were doing a lot of different things with that, and it just made all the difference because it made it more fun. It was inspiring, and
Yeah.
you're hanging out with people that are hustling the same. They're after the same hustle that you are, and you can help each other because everybody's got a piece to the puzzle.
Right. And
And if you're
it was so kind of like pay to play when I was booking,
Mhm.
and it still is in Los Angeles. And each artist that came from out of town that said, "Hey, can you book me in LA?" And I'd be like, "Sure, but where's your money?" And they'd be like, "What? I'm filling rooms like with 700 people in Northern California."
Yeah,
And it was just
it's not
so,
LA.
oh, I was starving. I mean, I was
Yeah.
like, what am I doing? But I love artists like you. So I had to come up with like, this is a great avenue, but I really appreciated our any jam session that was going on, which was Mondays was happening. Like, I didn't know that was you. And just, I would always direct artists to go to those or to find a group where you could feel supported, kind of, because that's the only way I've made any. I mean, even if you're going into the insurance business, you want to you want to have somebody refer you to so and so, and that's usually
Hmm.
how I've always gotten jobs in any capacity. And so it's the same thing really with the
Yeah.
music community, and it doesn't have to just be LA. I mean, there's so, like you've mentioned, there are great music communities all over the world. Berlin,
Every town should have
like,
some version of a music
find
community,
them. Yeah,
especially music hubs where there's a concentration for whatever reason,
absolutely.
because the industry is there in some capacity, like Nashville or Austin or New York or something, and especially those towns. But even in smaller towns, I mean, I was in Springfield, Missouri for a little bit, and there's a whole music community there, and there were great musicians there.
Yeah,
So, I think finding that, I mean, I was going to say like there's an important part of how that all came about in that when Jay Nash was running Room 5, he created based off of the old the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville Songwriters in the Round series.
yeah,
Jay started a Songwriters in the Round thing on Monday nights, and it turned into this really great thing that he got going mainly with he was doing a four songwriters, including him. It was Jay Nash, or it was Jay Nash. It was Garrison Starr, Adrian, and Gabriel Mann. And they would every week for a little while, for like a couple months, they were doing it, and it was great. The show they would put on every Monday was great, and it really drew this audience that loved it. And from there, soon after he ended up Jay got so busy touring that's when he offered me the gig, and then I took over the songwriters in the round, and for a few years I was booking all the songwriters in the rounds. I was playing all the songwriters in the rounds, and that, because it was one night that was like a designated kind of being a
yeah.
community night in a sense, because all the musicians weren't playing gigs, so they would come to support,
Mhm.
and the room would fill, hope on good nights it would fill with a bunch of people. But no matter what, whether it was full or not, there would always be people hanging out, and it was their opportunity to meet, to go somewhere each week where they know they'd be around other songwriters, they'd see some great music, and it just became this thing. So I learned that there's a lot to be said for having a night that brings people together. And then when I changed it to the Monday thing in 2013, I I wanted to include more people to help just kind of stir it up more and bring more people into the room that would, therefore, because there was more people on the bill, there'd be more people coming into the room, and then that more people would be exposed to more people. And as a result, it just became this really cool gathering place. And I've realized the value of that early on, even before it was really catching on, and and I stuck with it, and I almost didn't for a couple years. I almost gave up on the whole thing because it's tough to create something like that starts to feed into itself, and you feel like you're doing it all for nothing. And it wasn't paying my bills, let's just say it was more a labor of love. And so, but then after we moved it to the hotel cafe and got more people involved, it started to click how valuable it was. And now I get to the value of people coming to me telling me how important those nights have been to them. And there've been bands. I mean, the Milk Carton Kids met at Room Five. I
Really?
mean, well, I don't know if they met, but they formed
That's
that
awesome.
band on stage with me
Oh my
in the round.
gosh, that's
I mean,
great.
at Room
I didn't
Five.
know that. That's
So
so fun.
yeah, and like Phoebe Bridgers, she was on she played Mondays all the time early on, and I got tipped off to her and was blown away by her right away. And then she just I basically whenever she wanted to play, I'd have her play. And so she was doing a lot of stuff on Mondays there and different nights, excuse me. And then and I've been able to see that, and that just helps too, because when you see that you know anybody from this scene at any given moment could their whole life could change. And I've seen it happen so
That's
many
so
times.
true.
Yeah,
That's
and
so
so
true.
you never know, and that, like we were saying earlier too, it's like I working all those years at Hotel Cafe, I didn't necessarily know who had come through
Right.
until after the fact sometimes.
Yeah. So
And I mean, a funny story real quick about that is I remember back, it was in 2013. I know this because I wrote a note in my phone. I was working at the Hotel Cafe in the main stage one night, and it was just a regular weeknight. And you have like 5 shows in the whole night. And I remember the 11 o'clock slot. Never heard of the guy before, but you know, I was just getting ready, figuring out what's the configuration of this. It was Sturgill Simpson, and I set up his whole band, and they had this slaying set that was incredible, and there wasn't a single person there
mm,
except for the staff. And it was just like, I mean, there may have been like 2 people or something. It was an empty room. And I remember the staff and I were just our jaws were on the floor of how, I mean, they played just like they were playing to a packed house. And I knew he would be big at some point. And I wrote down in
yeah.
my phone, Sturgill Simpson, holy shit country. And,
Well, you
and
never know who's going to be in the room. Even if,
yeah,
like, I was taught that. I come from an acting background, but I sing too. But I mean, I told artists that forever. I said, don't. You never know who's standing in the back of the room. You don't know who's sitting behind that console. You
yeah,
don't know who could hear you outside the door. Sing like you're playing to a practice. So that was right on that they did that. That's cool.
yeah,
That brings
yeah.
me joy. But like, what do you think that this looks like now that we can't? I just wanted to get your quick thoughts, and then I do want to hear you sing. But I want to know what your thoughts are. I mean, everybody's streaming. Everyone's maybe has a tip jar or whatever's going on. We're working on creating and getting ready and getting their ducks in a row, if you want to use that expression, but really polishing what they have
Mhm.
and that's what we're all doing. But in the meantime, what other avenues do we have? What if we can't gather as much? And what if, I know you said that we're not touring until 2021 for you guys at least. So with different various bands that you're working with, but I
Yeah.
want to know what your thoughts are. Like, where are we going? Where are we
I
going?
mean,
Because we were already kind of like, you know, needed more cohesiveness, in my opinion. Like you're saying, I know we have a lot of like you mentioned, all the older artists. Like there's Todd Rundgren was touring again, Daryl Hall, but like Alan Parsons, who I've met
mhm,
a couple of times, who's lovely, and totally feels like this. And, obviously an engineer himself as well as an artist. So do we gather everyone? And what is the plan if you know little tidbits?
I mean, everybody, including our agents at CAA, are just kind of, it's a waiting game at the moment. I mean, that's the truth. And I don't know. I mean, I think we'll get back to normal. It's just a matter of when and how much damage is going to be done, to be honest.
Right.
But the good part about all this is that it's forcing creativity.
Yes, it
And it's
is. Yeah.
forcing people to think outside of the box. And I think, in a way, I feel like that needed to happen in some
Yeah.
way. I never would
Yeah.
have wished this whole thing to happen, but I felt like there needed to be a shakeup anyways, in some capacity, if anything else, just to really appreciate what we have. And I mean,
Yeah.
obviously, we're going to come out of this appreciating things a whole lot more. So there's value to that. But I mean, I am worried that the music industry is going to suffer a big blow. But I don't think music's ever going to go away, because at the end of the day, if anything, it'll weed out the people that don't need to be there.
Yeah. I agree with you. Meredith's also saying
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, I'm a big, if you want to go down the rabbit hole of this kind of stuff with me, it's like I
Well,
have a firm belief that we need to somehow get money out of the the forefront of the equation when it comes to music, because
I agree.
it compromises all the good stuff. And
Oh, dude, I can't even go and see some of my friends because it's so expensive. My friend plays with David Byrne, and I was just like, I want to come see, before all this happened. I was like,
Right.
yeah, I'm going to get a ticket no, I'm not. And it's like, and who has, like, even if you have some comps as an artist, it's for the parents or whatever. Like, the artists kind of don't get what
the key to that is to not be in a major city.
Oh, yeah. Right.
Go to the show in an in-between city, and you can get all the comps you want.
When you were
As
saying
a little side note.
I know.
When you were saying the money thing, Joel, about getting it out of the forefront, did you mean more of artists that have money to back them that shouldn't really have a record deal, that type of thing? Like,
not well. That's a side, or I don't know if it's a side effect, but that's a part of it. But that's not a direct. We're so beholden to.
Right.
I mean, so the music industry doesn't make money on its own right now, especially now. Right. The last thing that was making music industry money was live concerts, and now we're here. Right. So now we're basically looking at a dry well, and the only way to get funding and revenue is to go to corporate sponsors, branding, whatever. And that can be all fine and well, but you've got what I see is you have people that have the money to spend. They budget it at the beginning of the year, and sometimes it's crazy amounts of money, and they're going to spend it, but because they're giving it to you, a lot of times, now they have a say, and or in some way, shape, or form, the whole business, whatever's happening, is being catered to that. It's like politics,
it's like
why we want to get rid of super PACs. It's the same kind of thing, really.
Exactly. And there needs to be more of a say, and some kind of checks and balances, if you will, although that's not working very good in our country.
Yeah,
but
I think more than any
better terminology.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
More than anything, I think it's like what I've seen in my position is it's so hard to make it in the music industry, to make it to a level where you're actually able to even if it's a weird thing, because you're chasing things, even if you don't want to be this big arena act, you almost need to achieve that to afford the whole infrastructure of how to even tour, and so there's a lot of different things to how it all works, and the amount of money it takes to make music or to tour, it's insane how much money it takes. And the fact that there's no real revenue streams that are directly available to artists so what I've seen is booking small up and coming venues is so many talented people. that
Yes.
are deserving of being heard, and
Yes.
that should be heard. And it's not about their talent, it's not about what they have to say, it's just about whether they can fund and to get them into play.
Yes.
They can throw down the buy-in, basically.
I don't want to see, and nobody wants to see music like butchered that way. We want authenticity, and I think that's what honestly is going to sell. You know, we have our pop world, but like
Yeah,
I
I
think
mean that's
people
always going to
are
exist on
hungry.
some level, but
They're hungry, but they're
yeah, I
hungry
think
for
there
the
needs to be more
music.
more there needs to be ways to fund
Yeah,
true talent
yeah,
that could develop, because you know a legend doesn't just start, they're not a legend at birth. I mean, they develop into that, and the different opportunities that come along the way are what turn them into being as great as they are. And some there I see in my perspective of everything, and just being around the music scene in a town like LA, where people come to LA because they know that's where the industry, or a large aspect of the industry is, and they know they're going to find people that are really hungry for it. That's why I
yeah,
came to LA. I wanted to be around people that were really ambitious. And so you're naturally going to have some of the best talent coming through here one way or another. And to see so many people, like, I've seen the whole spectrum of, the artist that has a bunch of backing because of the family, or just some investor or whatever, and that's great. But then you have some super talented artists that is like the real, like, nitty gritty of, like, just
yeah,
oozing talent and authenticity, that can't draw a crowd, because they just don't have the skills of, like, the leadership of, like, hey, come to my show, and everybody shows up. But
yeah,
they'll blow away the artists that can do that, any day. And it's like I see so much of that off balance, that
yeah,
it just gets I mean, my heart
yeah,
is in trying to find any ways to change things, or help find, you know new ways to look at. I think the music industry needs to be restructured at this
yes,
point, and
yes,
I'd like to see part of the restructuring of it afford opportunities to people that would otherwise not get them, and be more about the music, and about, like, finding real talent,
yes.
and not being about what we can market. Because the thing about marketing is a bunch of people that are really good at selling shit. They don't necessarily know anything about music or the
That's
heartbeat
right.
of music, but they know how to sell shit. And you find that, as a musician trying to figure it all out, you're so many things are making you cater to fitting these in this particular way, so that they can sell it. But it's like, it shouldn't be that way. It should
No,
be,
Right.
if
Unless
you have
the
something great, then these people are trying to figure out how to sell it. And I don't know. I mean, it's I understand it's more complex to that. I do
yeah,
understand that
it
there
does.
is it is a necessary evil to some degree, to really push hard and work these things, and consider different, uh, a lot of different things in the whole process. But at the end of the day, somebody when I see somebody at Hotel Cafe playing on a Monday, and the entire audience is just drawn in and, like, hanging on every word, and you're, like, feeling that emotional tug, and it's like all happening, like, that is more valuable as a music experience than, half of the ones that are making all the money right now, and so
100%. I totally agree with almost everything you just said. I hate to see artists being preyed upon, and I worked alongside someone that did that once, and I called them out. They were my boss. I don't work for them anymore because I've always spoken truth to power, even when I could have just, I don't know what I was thinking in some instances, but I said, they did it to a famous person, and this person was an addict. And I didn't like how she was treated in front of other people so disrespectfully, and
mm,
just like, oh yeah, just keep her on, keep so we can get it out of her, like I just don't like that.
mm,
And I don't appreciate and any artist being taken advantage of
Yeah.
money wise. And yeah, they're almost I know there's a musicians union, but we almost need a protective committee, like the superheroes, and like a rotating committee of people. I know there's a few boutique like marketing or PR firms. I don't know. We have some that are run. I saw one downtown, I've forgotten the name, that was run like by musicians, for musicians. That was very cool. Maybe Meredith and I can mention that on our next little show, that we're talking about those kinds of things, and just kind of directing artists as to where they can go. I mean, that's how we kind of came up with that little show that we'll start, is because I really want to still support artists, and I will volunteer for whatever anybody puts together, whatever needs to be done, because it's vital. It's vital that we keep it going, for lack of a better phrase, like keep the music playing, right?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if we don't, I feel like we can't lose music. Like, I think I could even live without movies. As an actor, that's a bold thing to say. But like, I can't live without music, and I can't live without good music being created and supported too. And being
I think music is very widely taken for granted.
For sure.
Because I'm one to believe that music is a universal language.
It is.
And it should be used more for that, and be, treated more respectfully, and in that, I mean, the fact that in this country, or a lot of parts of this country, like the idea of funding the arts or music is just like such a whatever. That's like a fun job. It's like the way we get treated, like even in this pandemic. I know a lot of touring professionals, and you may have heard this kind of stuff too, is there's a lot of touring professionals that, like, they've been working for 20 years as a touring professional, and now there's no touring, and they're trying to figure out what to do, and there's people out there that are like, just get a new job, dude.
That's right.
Like, what?
That's
like, why? Like, why should I get? Because there's a lot of people that don't think what we do as, they think it's just a fuck off job. It's like we're reaping all the benefits, we're having fun, we're partying all the time.
You're on tour with this person or that person. I actually had someone say to me, they looked at like my credits or something. They were not in the business though, but they were like, "Why don't you have more money?" or something like that. It's like, I don't know. First of all, I'm a woman. I get paid like crap money. I mean, give me a break, man. Like, it's just a misconception that, like, I think I had it when I grew up in Florida, by the way. So I grew up in Clearwater, Florida. And so I have a lot of people that are like, "Oh, you were," like, I think I was an extra on ER once. Like, "You are an ER?
Right.
You must be rich."
Yeah.
What world
it's
are
amazing.
you
I mean,
in?
the entertainment industry is done a disservice in a way, on the fact that there's this whole mystery surrounding all of it, and as a perception game with this, that's the PR for the entertainment industry, is all about perception, and these personas and everything like that. And nowadays, maybe more so, people are presenting themselves as who they are.
Right.
There's part of the illusion, and to the legends of music and everything like that, is the fact that there's this mysterious persona and stuff. But then it's easy for people that are only just hearing the music and not really like tuning into the whole world and lifestyle of it all. It's just, they think that it's just all fun and games, and it's this whole thing that we get to do that they don't get to do. And so why should we get should we get handouts, whatever?
It's all fun and games until someone's has no food in their pantry. I mean, it's all good, great that you love the song, but this is an opportunity to say to our lovely audience, give to the arts, give to music.
I mean, I always look at both sides, and I can understand the mentality of it to a certain degree.
Yeah, there are some people,
but but it's we shouldn't have to sit there and tell you all the hard-working things that we do, and how difficult it is to be. It's like, then it's just violins and wow.
We don't make someone who's a social worker come home and tell us all their. I mean, it's a job. So yeah, but
Streaming thing to me is like I understand. I mean, I never did any streaming before. I may have done one or two shows in, however many years, trying the streaming thing, but I saw that it's like, well, we're gonna have to figure this out because, and everybody for the most part has been doing that because we need something. And for me, I saw the opportunity, like, wow, okay, I have this time. I could really be working on getting better and just conditioning myself to sing and play and just challenge myself and reach a bunch of people that I haven't been able to play to in years. And so that was a cool thing. But then, I think as we move forward, I mean, it's really going to ultimately be about the quality, you know, rising, and I think people are getting better and better at it. I know for me, the quality of my streams has gone up quite a bit
yeah, I'm
since I
learning too.
started this thing.
I mean, for us, it's been a kind of a blessing because we're able to get a little bit more done, and it was costing a ton of money on shoot days.
To me, they're just now, especially with live music gone. I mean, to me, this is
Yeah,
an opportunity to develop another medium for live music that
that's
can be
right.
totally viable, that could actually reach more people
That's
and
right.
stay in tune and stay in touch with your fans more.
Yes.
And it's another way to create. And I think that to find all the cool creative opportunities that can be developed, whether it's people's personal streams or like
Yeah.
my buddy Clay Blair is doing a great live stream out of his studio Boulevard recording
Oh,
on
cool.
Hollywood.
Okay.
That is one of the best live streams I've ever seen, and it's called
Oh,
Boulevard Live.
Boulevard
And
Live. Okay.
yeah, and it's great. And I mean, I'm a big there's a series of performances from back in the 70s that was done by the BBC called the Old Grey Whistle Test, and it was the show that um, what's his Bob Harris and at BBC, is he's a big music buff, out there and reporter, and he was one of the main. I don't know if he helped create it, but he was the MC of the whole thing, and they had some of these legendary performances of all the
Yeah.
great artists from the 70s on this show. And the way it's like, yeah, I mean, everybody did something like that and had performances, sure, but there was something about the way they did it where it was like in a studio setting, it sounded like a record, and it looked incredible. Like the footage is amazing, like all the camera angles and everything. It's all pretty simple, but it's done so well that it just feels like another level of a music
Yeah.
performance. And so to me, I've always looked at shows like that. That's my favorite one. But there's other examples, as opposed to certain live music broadcasts that are just
Right.
like you don't really feel the feeling of being there. You don't feel the music the same way. Sometimes it falls flat if the mix is
Yeah.
bad. Broadcast
Yeah.
mixes are the worst. And
Yes,
so,
I know, because
I
I've been
think if
trying to
more
do it.
attention gets paid to developing the broadcast mixing to be better,
Yeah.
for camera, how they shoot things to be better. There's a whole medium for music and showcasing music that could be completely viable, that could sell a lot more artists, that could, expose a lot more artists. And I like to think that out of this we're going to gain that
I
to
agree.
pair up with live music, and maybe it'll make live music in general more of a thing that, I mean, people are going
Yes.
to be hungry for it. So that to me is a good thing. And I think that, it shouldn't be something where it just trades off and everybody goes back to concerts and then the streaming thing ends. I think you should keep the streaming thing
I
going.
agree.
I mean, especially for somebody like me, where if I'm going to be doing the balancing on the road and stuff like that, I mean, this is a way for me to reach my fans.
That's right.
And if I can tour, great. If I can't, at least I can do this, and it's something that people are interested in tuning into, and that's something. And I mean, I would love to watch more and have access and the ability to watch some of my favorite artists in a really great sounding, great looking setting that it feels like a performance in just another way. It's just different.
Yeah, it's so intimate.
Yeah.
And it's so necessary. And I hope it also stays, and I hope we get better at it. And I know it's hard to dial in sound sometimes over these
Yeah,
various streaming services, but when
there's
it
better
works,
ways to get into that. I mean, they're even developing, they have basically now stuff, and I mean, it could be developed more where, somebody like me who's a sound engineer, I could remotely mix somebody's
oh,
live stream.
Totally.
you know, and
Totally.
so that if you can't do it on your own or you need help, I mean, short of having somebody there in the room with you, there's the technology to do things like that. And I think as if
Great.
right now we have to deal with it, and so why not just be creative and look at all the possibilities? Because right now I know it was uncomfortable for me to start live streaming,
Yeah.
but what I found is now I've become more and more comfortable with it, to where it's like the better this gets, I don't want to stop doing it, because it's a, like I said, it's another way to create music and to play music and be live and be in the moment, and
Yes.
it can
And
be a
be together.
complement to a live show. Granted,
Yeah.
I'd much rather see a live band or a live artist in a room any day, but you know,
Yeah.
you don't always, I mean, some of my favorite artists of all time I never got to see in concert.
That's true.
Think about it, you know? If I
Yeah.
had a chance to at least see a great live performance online, that's,
Yeah.
and I mean, especially anything that can really understand how to capture it in a way that draws you in. I mean, I get there's a nuance to that, you know, and the thing to me about nuance is you can't really explain it. That's
You
part of
can't.
what
And
music
it's,
is.
I hate when people use the it factor thing,
Yeah.
you know, to explain an artist or something. But yeah, it's a nuanced thing that just simply clicks. And one of those shows, like you mentioned, that other show on the BBC, and I think of Jules Holland. I think
Right.
he's been on for what, 23, 25 years now.
Hmm.
And oh my
Yeah.
gosh, like that's a show that's so great. And I kind of, you know, when I started watching that, of course, listening to him play is great. But when I started to watch that show over the past few, what 10 years, just all the old recordings, and they were masterful at bringing that intimacy in a big space, you
Yeah.
know. And I love the way he does that, like, and then chats with the person on the side. Everybody's gonna have their own. I say just go for it, whatever your idea is, now's the time. Like,
Yeah, and
if
you
you are,
find
yeah,
the way that it works with your
yeah,
personality and your persona.
yeah.
Yeah.
Like, look at this. We started this in 2017. We did it when we could, and now we're picking up because of we're able to do it more often. And it's just, you know, there's tons of streaming shows, but there's only our streaming show is this way, and everybody's got their own brand. And so I want to say, don't be afraid, and don't be afraid to, like, if you're a sound engineer, like, go forward and like put yourself out for hire, mix
Yeah.
somebody's album. Joel, that was a great idea. Like, you're full of great ideas like that. And you're such a resource. And I hope that people get a ton. I feel like I could talk to you for days. I know that we have to stop,
I
but
know, right?
I hope to
We could
have
talk
you
for days.
get back on after this again. And
Great.
there's
Yeah,
so much more
anytime.
to cover. But will you play for us? Because I think
Sure.
that's the best way for people to get acquainted with your sound and who you are as an artist. And that's just an awesome special treat that we get to pre-record here.
All right.
So we're gonna have a little private concert. But do you need to take a minute for your voice or anything?
I think I'll be all right. I can just, I
Okay.
mean, if you know, if it goes disastrously, I can always start over, right?
That's true.
I think I'll be all right.
I just wanna like formally tag out and just say thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Of course.
was,
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
awesome, and kind of kismet, like,
Hmm.
that we click together. We have so many people in common. I keep finding more. So
Yeah.
I better not, I better be on my best behavior. Okay, Ben, so I'm gonna let you take it away.
Thing, the same old, stuck in the same old thing. Ooh, stuck in the same old thing, the same old, stuck in the same old thing.